Welcome back to Haunted World, where we delve into the chilling and mysterious realms of true crime. Today, we're embarking on a journey through a case that is not only filled with unexpected twists, but also reveals the darker sides of human nature. This is the story of Sharon Marshall, a tale woven with secrets, betrayal, and tragedy that feels as if it were ripped straight from the pages of a suspenseful thriller. But rest assured, every detail is rooted in reality. Our story begins in 1975, when a young girl named Suzanne Marie Savakis was just around 5 or 6 years old. She had a mother, Sandra Sandy Chipman, and 3 siblings. At the time, her mother was struggling financially and made a decision that would ultimately change all of their lives forever. She married a man named Franklin Delano Floyd. Floyd presented himself as a caring stepfather, but in reality, he was a convicted criminal with a dark and violent past. He had already spent time in prison for a string of offenses, including sexual assault, attempted kidnapping, and bank robbery. But Sandra had no idea about the true nature of the man she had just married. Shortly after their marriage, Sandra was sentenced to 30 days in jail for writing bad checks. When she was released, she returned home, only to find that her children were gone. Franklin Delano Floyd had disappeared with all of them. Sandra was later able to recover 2 of her children, who had been left in foster care. But her eldest daughter, Suzanne, was never seen by her family again. Franklin had taken her, and from that moment on, he controlled every aspect of her life. For years, Suzanne lived under different names. The most well-known alias she was forced to use was Sharon Marshall. Floyd raised her as his own daughter, moving frequently to avoid suspicion. Despite the horror she was living in, Suzanne, or Sharon as she was known, was incredibly intelligent and ambitious. She excelled in school and even won a full scholarship to Georgia Tech to study aerospace engineering. But she never got to follow her dreams. The man who had stolen her life made sure she would never escape. Instead of letting her go to college, Floyd forced her into a life of crime and exploitation. By the late 1980s, he had relocated with her to various states, making her work as an exotic dancer. He controlled her completely, making sure she could never run away. During this time, Sharon became pregnant and gave birth to a son named Michael Hughes. The identity of Michael's biological father remains uncertain, but what is known is that Franklin Delano Floyd claimed the boy as his own. In 1990, Sharon Marshall was living under yet another identity. This time, she was known as Tanya Hughes. She was married to a man named Clarence Hughes, though it is believed this marriage was arranged by Floyd to further cover his tracks. On April 30th, 1990, Tanya was found gravely injured on the side of a highway in Oklahoma City. She had been hit by a car in what initially appeared to be a tragic accident. However, the circumstances surrounding her death raised many questions. Doctors quickly realized that she had suffered severe injuries before the accident, injuries that suggested she had been beaten. Witnesses also reported seeing Franklin Delano Floyd acting suspiciously near the scene. 2 days later, Tanya Hughes, who was actually Suzanne Marie Savakis, died in the hospital. She was only in her early 20s. At her funeral, Floyd showed up with their son, Michael, but something was off. He barely seemed upset about her death. Instead, he acted controlling and aggressive, trying to prevent anyone from asking too many questions. When people from the community began looking into her past, they made a chilling discovery. Tanya Hughes, the woman everyone thought they knew, did not exist. There were no official records of her before a few years prior. The real question was, who was she? Following Sharon's death, Floyd took Michael Hughes and went on the run. Eventually, the authorities caught up with him in 1994, and Michael was placed in foster care. By this time, investigators had begun piecing together the puzzle of Sharon's true identity. But before they could get answers, Floyd did something unimaginable. In September 1994, he walked into Michael's elementary school in Oklahoma with a gun. He forced the principal into a car at gunpoint, demanding that he drive him to where Michael was being kept. Once they arrived, he took Michael and vanished. The boy was never seen again. Years later, Floyd finally confessed to what happened. He admitted to murdering Michael shortly after the kidnapping, claiming that he wouldn't have been a normal child anyway due to his upbringing. It was a heartbreaking end for the little boy who had already lost so much. During their investigation, authorities discovered that Floyd was also connected to another murder. In 1989, a woman named Cheryl and Camesso, a co-worker of Sharon's at a strip club, had gone missing. Her skeletal remains were later found near a highway in Florida. In 1995, a crucial piece of evidence linked Floyd to her death, an old briefcase containing photographs of Cheryl being brutally beaten. The evidence was undeniable. Floyd was charged with her murder and sentenced to death. It wasn't until years later that DNA testing officially confirmed that Sharon Marshall was actually Suzanne Marie Savakis, the little girl who had been stolen decades earlier. Franklin Delano Floyd remained on death row in Florida for years until he died of natural causes in January 2023. This case is one of the most disturbing and heartbreaking true crime stories of all time. A little girl was stolen from her family, forced to live under false identities, manipulated, and abused for her entire life. Even after her death, it took decades for the truth to come to light. And what makes it even more terrifying, cases like this still happen today. If you found this story disturbing, make sure to subscribe to Haunted World for more cases like this. And remember, sometimes the scariest stories aren't the ones from horror movies. They're the ones that actually happened.